Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish my spouse wouldn't be such a jerk? Well, here's something to think about. Maybe they aren't the jerk. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the Celebrate Your Date podcast, and it's the 8th of the month.
That's right.
If you don't know, we drop a new one on the 8th every single month. The 8th is special because this is our date.
Our date.
And the concept of Celebrate Your Date is to celebrate the date of your anniversary. And so the 8th is ours. So thanks for tuning in and watching. If you're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, thanks for tuning in. If you find this content helpful, what should they do?
They should share it with their friends so that they can have the content too.
Share it with your friends. So share it. Give us a review. Also, if you find it helpful, we'd love reviews. They help us get seen by more people, and that's the goal here. We're here to simply offer you some relationship advice, some help. We've been married 29 years, and we've learned a few things in our 29 years. Made a whole lot of mistakes.
That's right. Made a whole lot of mistakes.
More me than you.
But I feel like we're doing pretty good.
Is that true? More me than you mistake-wise?
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit.
You would say that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So today's topic is called Don't Be a Jerk.
That's right. And first of all, we want to say by no means are we advocating using any negative name calling in your relationship.
Yeah. So we're not telling you that this today is a right for you to look at your spouse and say, don't be a jerk.
That's right.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't say that.
That's not what this is about.
Don't say that. Honestly, the idea kind of came a couple years ago when I was reading a blog, and it was titled Don't Be a Jerk. And it kind of caught my attention, because...
Yeah, that's like a catchy title.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking, this is going to help me tell my date not to be a jerk.
So you're saying we stole it from someone?
I did. You know what? I think we should give credit. I can't even really remember who wrote the article.
Stole it.
But it was really good. But it kind of makes you think to flip the script and look at inward and say, what am I doing in the relationship that I might be the one being a jerk? And it really kind of changed my thinking on a lot of things.
Because let's be honest, most of the time, we want to pick at our spouse's behavior, and we want to say, well, if you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have done this, and why are you so this and that? So we're going to debunk all of those myths today. Hopefully ask you to kind of look inward and ask yourself, how am I being a jerk?
So it's not looking at your spouse and saying, don't be a jerk. It's looking in the mirror and saying, don't be a jerk to yourself.
Yeah. So a lot of this hinges on communication, not all of it. But so we'll talk about a few things along this line. And that is that the things that you say with your mouth, your speech is really, really important.
Super important.
It's important. I mean, communication is like the foundation of relationships. And so we want to ask 4 questions: what, how, when, and why.
That's right.
Why?
Super important.
Let's tackle what. So what you say is really, really important. Why?
That's right. Because honestly, I've heard it said one time that it takes 3 positive statements to erase a negative statement.
Wow.
So if you're constantly speaking negative statements to your spouse, think about all the catching up that you have to do to erase that. Because honestly, words hurt. Like whoever said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me.
Not true.
Is not true.
No, it's not true at all. I mean, that's a cheesy statement, but the reality is the words that we say hurt. So what you say is really important. And that means that sometimes you've got to catch yourself before you just say something to say it, right? So what you say is really important. So on that, the second thing is how you say it.
That's right.
Is equally as important, right? Missy will tell me this all the time. She's like, it's not what you said, it's your tone of voice.
That's how you say it.
Sometimes that really matters because you could say something in the right heart, but say it sarcastically or say it in a short manner or impatiently, and you get a reaction. Yeah. And then you kind of wonder, like, what did I do wrong? But it was how you said it.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of goes really good with not to say things in the heat of the moment.
Oh, yeah. That's
because
good.
Sometimes you need to take a step back and not to sound cheesy, but take a few deep breaths.
Yeah.
And then you think before you speak.
Yeah. And so that's not just verbal, but also nonverbal, right? I mean, think about it. If you're crossing your arms and you say something, what is your body language telling you? Or if your arms are, flailing and doing this, it really doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. And that's the thing is what you say is important, But if you don't say it right, if your how is wrong,
that's right.
Then the what doesn't really matter.
What about the classic eye roll?
You have that perfected.
I do.
Do that. Do it again. Look at the camera and do the eye roll. That's the eye roll. And that's again nonverbal communication. So if your spouse says something to you and you react by rolling your eyes, then you're basically telling them you're stupid. I don't like what you just said, or I don't agree with what you just said, or you're off base there, or all of that. And what's crazy is how many times, and this is true of us, how many times can one little tiny thing happen? And because the nonverbal or the tone of voice or something was off, you go down this 2-hour argument or this cold shoulder, or the whole night is ruined. I mean, I can think back to several of those kinds of things that we've had. And it's we were literally out on a date one time and we were literally do we just want to go home?
Yeah.
Do we just want to stop this because this is ridiculous? And it's all because of something little, small, silly that the how was wrong. Yeah. So the verbal and the nonverbal matters a whole lot. And the reality is you have to say something to your date, to your spouse, in such a way that they hear what you want to get across.
Yep, they're receptive to it.
Because if you say something and it creates a defensive reaction, or then what you just said really is null and void.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that all goes back sometimes to your tone. And I know this sounds crazy because you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to get my point across. I'm not going to stop and think, oh, how do I say this? But that's why sometimes it's okay for a little bit to just kind of take a break and then come back, because sometimes things that are said in the heat of the moment, first of all, can't ever be taken back.
That's true.
And second of all, then you're trying to think of ways to backtrack and say, oh, I really didn't mean it this way, but it was this way. And sometimes a lot of issues can be resolved if you don't speak in the heat of the moment. Yeah,
yeah. And so what we're kind of saying with this is if you say something or you bring something up, what you say or how you say it, if it elicits a reaction that you didn't want, then that's where we're saying maybe you have to internalize, say, okay, was I being a jerk?
Yeah.
And again, we don't mean anybody necessarily means, I mean, let's be honest, sometimes we mean to be a jerk.
Yeah, sometimes.
Right? Sometimes we do it. Sometimes we're like, I meant that to say the way I said it. But that doesn't ever produce results. No. We don't ever get a better at relationships and at communication when that happens. So you have to realize I need to say something in a way that my spouse is going to hear it, so that we can communicate, so that we can get results. So what you say, how you say it, also when you say it is important. Yeah. Why is that important?
Are you trying to get that little jab in there?
Yeah.
Or if you know that your spouse is already frustrated, or if you think, oh, well, I'm winning because I have all my points stacked up against them and I'm just going to add this little thing just as the cherry on the top. What is your intention?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you intending to get out of a disagreement or an agreement or an argument?
Right. And timing in communication is really important. I mean, let's just throw out a few things. Again, and we're just throwing out scenarios, but let's say either one of you had a stressful day at work and you walk in the door and all of a sudden you want to talk for an hour about why the checkbook isn't balanced or why the kids are, whatever, and then you wonder why you don't get anywhere with that kind of communication because the timing is not right.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't always have to say in the moment what comes, people say, I just say what's on my mind. That's not really great advice.
No, it's not. It's not great advice in any situation.
It's really not, because a lot of times we don't want coming out through our mouth what's in our minds.
Yeah.
We've got to realize that when we say things is important, and we have to think, okay, when is this going to be best received? It's not going to be in the heat of the moment like we talked about. Although we're not saying either walk away and never revisit it.
No, you need to revisit, definitely.
But in that moment when you're going at each other, to add one more little thing in there is not going to help.
Yeah.
So there's no point in doing that, right? Can you think of any other scenarios when it might be a bad time to bring things up? Or
you know what? I really feel like, and we kind of dealt with this for a long time when we were first married, but it's never good to bring things up in front of other people.
Oh, that's good.
And maybe some people wouldn't agree with this, but if I was frustrated with you and we were out with people, I would try my best to act like nothing was wrong.
Oh, and then we're going at it when we get home.
And then when you get home, but it's because honestly, you don't ever want to make your date look bad in front of people. It doesn't matter if it's your kids, your friends, your parents, your family. Yeah. Like you need to let people know that you're on the same team, right? And that you're together.
That's good.
So right in front of people is not the best time.
And so the right win is not when you're out with people, when you're, in public, and your brain says, oh, well, I want to make a spectacle out of that, or I want to make sure everyone knows how I feel. Again, look inside and go, is that being a jerk? Yeah. Like we can all be jerks from time to time, but that's not going to help us win. Yeah. It's not going to help us communicate better. It's not going to help us get what we desire to get out of our relationship.
It's funny when you were saying that, I just thought of when we need to look inside to see if we're being a jerk about something, because sometimes if we can change our tone or our, what we say to where we're not being a jerk, then it's not going to put our date to where they want to be a jerk, because we can't act like a jerk and then be upset at them because they're acting like a jerk. Yeah, that's good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's like, well, why do I have to do that because they're not doing that? Well, what if you taking a step back and choosing to give the right response, the right what, the right how, the right when, what if that causes them to soften and then be receptive, And again, our human nature and our pride and all of that can say, well, I'm right. And, again, communication is not about being right or wrong. It's not about winning an argument or losing an argument. It's about moving forward. Yeah. And it's about strengthening our marriages, strengthening our relationships. And that only comes when we approach things in a way that we're not being a jerk. So what's important? How's important? When is important? The last one is why. Why are you saying this? Why are you intending to allow yourself to go there? Yeah. Right? Why is that important?
Just because, you don't want to just be hurtful.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I think we have a tendency, and I get it, when we get hurt, our natural tendency as a human is to maybe want
to hurt.
Yeah. And we kind of have to, get that thinking out of our minds because it doesn't really do any good. When we're hurt, we need to find a way to, tell our side or to say, you know what, I just want my feelings validated, or this is why it hurt me, not to hurt back.
And I think that's the question is, why are you saying what you're saying? If it is to get back at them or to get the last word or to make sure you prove your point, none of those things are valid reasons to say something. If the why is you're asking for changed behavior or you're asking for something to change. So I remember recently you had a really creative way to let me know that I didn't make the bed, because I make the bed on Fridays.
Yeah, Fridays,
usually because I'm off, she works,
and I work. And making the bed is important. To me.
And so I know that on Friday when Missy gets home, if the bed's made, she really appreciates that. So there was one Friday that I didn't.
Right. And I'll talk about this again in a minute, but this goes back to that article of how I changed my speaking. But there was one day he didn't make the bed, and I came in, and my split second thought was like, oh my gosh, she didn't make the bed. I had a hard day, and I just wanted the bed made. And so I took a step back, and I was like, hey, buddy, you know what happened? Somebody just messed the bed up that it took you so long to make. And just kind of made a joke about it, because I feel like I was kind of getting my point across, hey, it was important when I come home and the bed's made, and it wasn't, but I wasn't being demeaning, or I wasn't, being angry about it.
Right. Because your first thought could have been, he was at home all day. I worked all day.
What did he do?
Didn't he have 5 minutes to show me appreciation? And again, my reaction when you said that was kind of like, I kind of chuckled and smiled a little bit. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I didn't make the bed. I'm really sorry. Like, it really wasn't that big a deal. I mean, I did end up making the bed. Yeah. But just saying something a little bit different got the point across. Yeah. And she could have easily come in and said, what did you do all day, buddy? You know what I mean? Like I was at work all day and I was stressed and you can't, and that would have caused a fight. It would have caused an argument. But she said it in a way that just let me know, okay, I was supposed to do that and I didn't. And I just thought about that, and I thought that was pretty cool.
And which kind of brings us to our next point, like, how do you react when you don't get your way?
Right.
Like, I could have even just stayed mad all day and just been quiet and, internally thought, why doesn't he just do this one thing that's important? Like, I chose to tell you about it in a way that didn't make you defensive, and then we could kind of think, oh, okay, that was kind of funny.
Right.
And you've made the bed every Friday since.
Yeah, I have. I've learned my lesson.
So there you go.
Yeah, and that's what you have to think about is how do you react when things don't. Listen, if you've been married or in a relationship long enough, things aren't going to always go your way. We want them to go our way. We like for things to go our way. But the beauty of a relationship is it's not about one or the other. It's about both of you to become one. And so you're not always going to get your way. Actually, I believe that if sometimes you seek to give your spouse their way, you end up getting your way more often anyway. Like it's weird how that works.
Let's just say this too. We are probably two of the most opposite people in a relationship that you could ever find. There's not very many things we have in common, but that's what the beauty of a relationship is you find ways to make it work.
Yeah.
And you celebrate the differences that you have.
Yeah. And so, you don't have to have the last word or, you know what, I'm going to say this or that because I didn't like how again, all of those things, we've all done them and they happen in relationships, but I'm promising you can never go back and go, wow, that was really helpful or that really helped a lot.
When you don't have to have the last psh.
Yeah. Or whatever it is. I mean, like, well, no, you're wrong. Well, no, you are. No, you are. I mean, we do that. That happens. I mean, let's just make a joke out of it. Yeah. But it's not helpful. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if we learn that, well, that didn't go that great, well, then here's the thing. Then you have to turn around and go, was I a jerk?
Yeah.
Was I the one being a jerk? And we're not wired that way to naturally think that. But that's what we're challenging you to do is to ask yourself, don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Just don't be a jerk. And even if you think your spouse is being a jerk, it doesn't necessarily give you, you own your own responsibility and your own speech and what you say and all of that. And then do you extend grace? What does that mean?
You know what? I think it's just sometimes, going back to the whole bed thing, okay, before I jump to conclusions, maybe he did have a lot to do that day.
I didn't, but
maybe, I'm trying to help you out here. But you know what? It's like, are you bringing up past issues?
Right.
Are you trying to throw things in their face? Because you know what? We all need grace from time to time. And you know what? Yeah. There are some times where, I bite my tongue because I feel like I want to say something and you bite your tongue because you feel like you want to say something. But remember that your date is human. They're not going to handle every situation perfect.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that I need to not try my best in the relationship to handle things the right way.
Right. Extending grace is just about believing the best and realizing, before I attack them, can I give them a pass? And that leads us kind of this final thing as we wrap up. But when it comes to communication, when it comes to relationships, all that, you have to learn to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah. And I think early on in our relationship, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there, and I'm not, and a spouse and a wife could feel that way, or, the husband or whatever. But one thing that really irritated me is when you left your towel on the floor, your wet towel after the shower on the floor. And going back to this article, one thing that kind of has resonated in my mind for a long time is they said some of these little things that you choose to fight about, like the stupid little things about leaving, your towel on the floor or, not hanging your coat up when you walk in. Those might be the little things that you miss the most about your date if they weren't there. And I know
all the little annoying,
yes, I know that sounds crazy
things. Yeah.
And so sometimes I would go back to think, okay, yes, he did leave his towel on the floor, but can I not just pick that towel up for him? Now listen, that doesn't mean
not an excuse
that you can just leave a mess wherever you go and expect your date to pick it up.
And the truth is, there are some things for you that are worth, I don't want to say fighting over, but they're worth bringing up.
Yes.
There are some things that are a big deal. And if they're a big deal to you and you think, is this a battle that I want to fight? If it is, then by all means, yes. And again, this is the beauty of relationships is if you're a person where you're like, I need the toothpaste to be squeezed from the bottom and not if that literally just irritates the life out of you and every time you wake up in the morning, it sets you in a funk, then by all means communicate that, but don't bash your spouse because they don't do that.
Do it in the right way.
Let them know, like, hey, listen, this is really important to me. And then as the partner, your response is, you know what, that's an easy little small thing to do. Sure. Mm-hmm. If it knows that it's going to help you start your day right, then I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the balance and the give and take in relationships is so awesome, is because I get an opportunity to know, hey, she appreciates this, so I'm going to make an effort to do it. And it doesn't mean I do it all the time. Yeah. Sometimes I don't, but the times that I don't, she doesn't nag or say, hey, you slob, why didn't you? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's choosing your battles wisely. Because not every mountain is worth dying on.
Yeah,
it's just not.
It's not. And sometimes the fights, the small fights that become like huge arguments, are things that, like, if we would just take a step back and realize we're living with an imperfect person, and you're an imperfect person, then it doesn't have to be that difficult. Right. I mean, it's just like the ebb and flow. It's just like, I mean, there is a little bit of give and take in relationships, but I think sometimes, like what you said earlier, you know, sometimes if you seek to give or to serve your date, then ultimately you win in the end. Yeah. Like, so we have to kind of get rid of this selfish mindset of everything needs to go my way or this is not a good relationship.
Right. Or I'm just wired this way and this is how, you know, like there are so many excuses we use to justify our behavior. And it is really, really true. Like if you wake up, and again, I'm not saying every morning we wake up and, you know, say this, but if you wake up and say, what can I do to help my spouse? Yeah. What can I do to make them better? What can I do to help them out in this area, that area? When you seek to do that, the result is you end up having that done back to you. Yeah. That's just how it works.
Yeah. And also I think that kind of like goes back to where giving grace is, like to give each other grace on their bad days. Like one small mistake or one time where they like don't say things in the right way, that doesn't define your date. That might just mean they're having a bad moment. Right. You know?
So, hey, listen, so here's a few things. Don't be a jerk, obviously, right? Don't be a jerk. Say it together with us right now. Wherever you are, point inside and say, don't be a jerk. Hey, so listen, speech is important. Hey. What you say, is important. How you say it is important. Verbal, nonverbal. Verbal. I just slipped
verbal,
up.
Nonverbal.
Verbal, nonverbal. I just said it. When is important? Why am I saying this? And then how do you react when you don't get your way? Don't give the silent treatment. You don't have to have the last word. And then extend grace to one another. And then pick and choose your battles.
Yeah. And I think if you're intentional about these things, which it's not always easy to be intentional, but when you take the path and you choose to be intentional about things, then that's what makes everything special. You're going to have arguments. You're going to have disagreements. You're never going to be into that perfect, you know, we just get along all the time 100%. But it's learning how to work through those things.
Yeah, that is not possible for a man and a woman to get together to get along all of the time.
Especially when you're completely opposite in just about every aspect of your life.
Unrealistic. So it can be done though. You can enjoy it. Relationships are hard work, but the word that we're using is intentionality.
That's right.
That's what Celebrate Your Date is all about. Hey, we've got so many people still taking the Celebrate Your Date challenge. Make sure that if you're signed up to do that, post on your social media, share it with us. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. We would love to see what you're doing. I mean, we've got people all over the way in Cambodia, to Florida, to Missouri, to Texas, here in Jersey, Texas. We got people all over celebrating their day. So if that's you, drop us a line, hello@celebrateyourdate.com. Our website also is celebrateyourdate.com. If you haven't signed up for the challenge, it's not too late. You can do that. And so
you know what? Follow us on our socials.
Yeah.
All of our social media. And we just appreciate you guys taking some time out of your busy schedule to listen
or watch. Yeah, it means a whole lot. Again, if you found it helpful, if you know someone that could benefit from this, share it with them. Encourage them to subscribe. Give us a rating. We appreciate you guys supporting us in this. And we're just here to help.
That's right.
So one more time, we're going to say it together. Don't be a jerk.
See you next month.
Have a great day.